Yeah.
cool. Very
So
cool.
I'd love to begin our journey into your world by asking you 4 years ago, we were trying to figure out this pandemic. How are we going to get through it? All the ramifications. How did you survive that particular time period? And how did it change the way that you do things now?
Mm. So I have to say, I have an interesting background. I'm in the beauty industry. I actually grew up, I was a professional ballroom dancer, so that's where I do know a little bit of jazz and
Yeah.
music,
Yeah.
and culture as far as that goes. But I was like constantly on the go. I before the pandemic, I did not stop. I had no work-life balance. I literally don't know how I did it. And, so it was interesting when the pandemic hit, and because where I live, sorry, that's my French bulldog choking.
Oh,
Um,
I didn't hear anything.
um, because of the pandemic and me just going from country to country and city and state, I just was like, wow, this is like it's almost like having surgery. Like you just had to take time off,
Yeah.
right? And so for me, I mean, I lived in a bubble. I was in Hilton Head Island. We live outside. So, I felt terrible for like the people that I know that are personal to me that are in New York and, on this complete lockdown. But I embraced it. I was living my best life. I was biking, hiking, running, and it really taught me a lot of work-life balance. It was like a whole halt to like, okay, now what? And then I developed, then it was like, okay, my workaholic self kicked back in and I had to stay busy. So I did get to fly around because I have celebrity clients and I have, people with private jets. And so like I didn't completely live the pandemic life.
Yeah.
But what it did teach me is I started a consulting business and coaching business because I wanted to be able to, people had so much time on their hands. And I'm like, this is the time to work on your business as an entrepreneur. And this is the time to like reinvent and rebrand and re-engage. And so I took the opportunity to build a coaching and consulting platform. And my niche or where I would thrive or say I thrive is in the beauty industry. But during the pandemic, I was picking up consulting for chiropractors. I did consulting for a dental office, plastic surgeons. It was way beyond the scope of the beauty industry. And that's when I kind of got the bug to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
let's get to the essence of what you do on a daily basis here in 2024. I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of third graders. It's career day. And one of the
Yeah.
kids is like, hey, what do you do for a living? What's your
Yeah.
answer?
So I get to fly around the world and I work for five very big brands in the world that most people know about. And I go and put on big shows in different countries, like runway shows, hair shows, events. I do education. So I train other beauty professionals on skill sets. And then I also run my coaching and consulting company. So I work with businesses one-on-one to better their success and better their practices.
And those kids would be asking you a million questions right now. They would be
Yeah.
hitting it. So, what did you want to be in the third grade? What was your dream to grow up and become?
I bounced back and forth. I think before you actually get into high school and have to take that biology class where you have to dissect a cat, I wanted to be a vet.
Yeah.
And then it killed it for me in high school. I was like, absolutely not. I was actually in college to be a marine biologist.
Okay.
And I just, it wasn't for me. College wasn't for me. And I'm a very creative person. I grew up with a dance background. So I just was like, give me a paper to write, give me like something to act out, but don't give me mathematics.
Yeah.
And I was out. So I went to cosmetology school. And it's funny. Some people are like, oh, you don't have a college degree. I'm like, no, but I make great money
Yeah.
and I get to travel the world doing what I love.
And I don't
So
I don't know that that's applicable really anymore, especially with the younger generations. Like it's just you're paying so much money for this piece of paper that if you just went and we probably know that where we're at in our lives, if you could just go back and do these things and live in this school known as life, you're going to get all of those things.
Yeah, it's really amazing. This pertains to, I think, like school systems and like regular school and even cosmetology school. I've been working and talking and consulting with friends of mine that are actually trying to change the cosmetology curriculum across the board. And it's like, it's so outdated. And I look back and, I talk to my girlfriends that have kids. I don't have kids, but the ones that do have kids that are in school. And I'm like, so has the curriculum changed that much? Are we talking about how to invest your money, how to make money? And she's like, no. I mean, the math apparently has changed. Now it's some wacky formulas on how to like 2 plus 2 isn't
Yeah.
like the regular way. I'm like, I
Uh-huh.
don't understand. That's a foreign language to me. But yeah, I don't think that that's pertinent
Yeah.
anymore. And I think so many people are coming up with different mindsets and just really learning how to be entrepreneurial.
Yeah. So take me back to your childhood. What were the foundational seeds that were planted into you? You're obviously very busy, accomplished, and good at what you do. How did all of this evolve into your life as you know it now?
Yeah, I think so. My background, no one in my family is like artistic or creative or in the beauty side of any fashion or anything. My parents, I came from a background of pilots and flight attendants,
Okay.
and I grew up though with like the travel bug, and my parents, back then the world was safe, kids were safe. You didn't have to worry about things so much. You
Yeah.
knew the normal rules. If somebody tries to get you in the car, scream and run. But
Yeah.
like there was not it wasn't like it is today. And so, I traveled with both my parents. My dad was a pilot, my mom was a flight attendant, and they sometimes I would fly jump seat, which is unheard of now. Like I'm a
Right.
little kid flying jump seat, and I'm like, how is that legal?
Yeah.
But I did, and there was times where thank God my parents knew a lot of people, because if the flight was booked and there was extra staff as extra flight attendants on board that needed the jump seat, I would get booted. So um I grew up, having my mom call people in different cities and say, can you come pick up Danielle and I'll come back and get her tomorrow? And I just grew up really quickly. And then my father was just, neither of my parents came from money. They were just super hardworking.
Yeah.
And I've definitely been instilled since a child. I mean, from my dad being like, he changed his career completely midlife and went from a professor at a college to deciding that he wanted to fly commercial airplanes at 30 something years old. And
Wow.
my mom just being, she used to take me, and she was smart. She was the lead flight attendant, and she would be like, here, my 10-year-old daughter, my 8-year-old daughter is going to pass out peanuts and work for us. And she'd give me the trainees on the flight and say, here, my daughter is going to train you. And I look back on it now and I'm just like, these women probably thought, the heck is
Yeah.
like,
Uh-huh.
how okay. But I knew where everything was. I knew how to like run the show, and to this day it's like hard. I travel all the time, so
Yeah.
sometimes I'm like sitting on the plane and I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, that's so not the way it should be.
Uh-huh. Absolutely. So who's been a hero for you? Who's been that inspiration for you in your life?
Probably my father, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Just his malleability and his flexibility and just everything. He was so well respected. He's deceased now, but he was so well respected by everybody that he crossed paths with, and just was like so smart. And that was the one thing that I learned. He just, if he wanted to try something, he would do it. He never held back. And I definitely get that from him. I
Yeah.
just go.
Yeah. So you've obviously delved into a world, even overall on your timeline, you've done hard things.
Hmm.
What was one period of your career where it was particularly hard, but you grew quite a bit? It was tough. You didn't know where the end was, but when you got there, it was savory, and you were like, "Wow, I just exponentially grew."
Yeah, when I started goal setting was the biggest one for me. Like I started in like the fashion side of the industry, so I wasn't really planning on doing what I do now. I was like having fun, flying up to New York, doing Fashion Week, doing a lot of like that kind of work. And it just things happen for a reason. And, the ebb and the flow got me in front of an industry magazine for hairdressers. And they were like, I owned a salon at the time. I was doing the fashion side of things, and we got to talking, and there was a pivotal moment that they invited me up to do a photo shoot for them, and I didn't really quite get like the hairdressing side of the fashion industry, other than I was a hairdresser.
Yeah.
Um, and so it just kind of snowballed. And I started down this whole path of working for brands. And I was like, wow, this is kind of fun. And I was also just like, I took on that like role play that my dad always did with people, where he just educated people. He wanted to help people. And that's where it started working. I was like, wow, I actually can have a bigger impact. I have a bigger voice now. I can touch more people. I can change more people's lives. I can, give them all of the details and the secrets. And I think that's kind of a pivotal moment for me where my whole like outlook changed.
Yeah. So if you can meet anybody alive on the planet right now that you find fascinating, that would help you either in your career endeavors or just in general, just to be around them to see how they operate, who would that be?
So funny. That's a great question. I I don't know like if how much and like about Matthew McConaughey, but he's always
Oh
been
yeah.
an actor, right? And he's always like been successful, and he's always I mean, he's Matthew McConaughey, for
Yeah.
heaven's sakes. But like just in the last couple of years, he's like pivotally shifted into mindset and like coaching, and but it's his energy and it's his authenticity that when I've stumbled across some of these things that I was seeing online and then started looking into it and then realized that he had this whole like program, and I ended up doing it, and I was so inspired by it, and it actually triggered the next part of my career, which is now I have a business partner, and we are like creating programs online. We're creating mastermind groups for people. I'm partnering with magazines to do next level things. And so yeah, I think it's the idea of surrounding yourself with like-minded people. And
Yeah.
that's what I've like learned from listening to a lot of the things that he has to say.
I heard the Rogan interview he did and the depth and breadth of who he is. Because I remember him on in that 70s movie. It'd be a
Uh,
lot cooler if you did. Ah,
I was like,
just
uh,
totally Linkletter. It was one of his early films.
yes.
It's gonna
Uh,
it's gonna happen. It's gonna
yeah,
come in here at a
yeah,
weird point. But
yeah.
it's that kind of guy. And then you see the roles. But when he was talking about his life and what he's doing and how he evolved to this point and how he just doesn't take he's not the typical Hollywood guy. He's not gonna just fall for whatever he falls for. He's a very principled kind of guy. I saw him at a Texas football game this weekend walking around talking to the players.
Oh,
And
really?
and it was really cool just to see him. Yeah, he was just out there. I think it was a Longhorns game. And
Okay.
just his swagger, who he is and how he rolls, he's such a cool cat. All the way
Yeah.
around. He's like a very Maslowian, self-actualized kind of guy.
Yeah. 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 Very. I have a lot of respect. So
Yeah. So man, that movie, it's gonna hex me.
it's
So
like sitting on the tip of my,
and I love that film. So anyway,
me too.
it's gonna happen. So What is it for you being as highly motivated and as accomplished as you are? What gets you up every day? Because you have to give a lot to help people get to where they want to be, to feel their dreams, but you have to fulfill yourself as a human. What is that collective gumption for you every day to do that?
Um, so I'm like, again, I think it's part of the way I was raised, just like success, success mindset. You can do anything you want. It was so instilled in me that once I started that snowball effect and I realized like I can do anything I want, I mean, like I laugh a lot because my business partner is like, you can just pivot. And she's like, what if this contract ends? Like, then what? And I'm like, I don't know. I mean, I've always had the mindset of like, I'll go work at Starbucks and be a barista if I have to get
Yeah,
by. I have no ego whatsoever. Like I do not understand at all when people say I can't get a job. I'm like, "Oh, hell yeah, you can get a job.
right.
I'm sorry. Anybody can get a job."
Hmm.
You know? So I'm driven by success. I'm driven by achievements. And I think that's like when like I set goals and I was like knocking them off left and right. And then it really does fill my cup up to help somebody achieve something so great.
Yeah,
Like I've got this goal now that like we're doing all these online courses and we're like learning AI and we're doing all this stuff and I'm working with some tech out of the Philippines and I I actually like I'm like, okay, in 6 months, I'm making a trip over there. I
yeah,
know where they all live. I want to go meet them. I want to be involved. I want to take like their life to the next level.
yeah.
And that makes me that just like that's what fills me up.
But you have to be the embodiment of that. You can't just read this and take in this information. You have to live that life because the client's going to know that. If you're not authentic and you're not doing what you're asking them to do or have done it at some point, there's going to be a level of them that's not going to they're not going to buy
Yeah.
in, right?
Yeah, and I mean, we deal with it. Like I'm a very big like get on Zooms and I'm like, look, talk to me. Like I get it. I've traveled all over the world. And I think when you have traveled all over the world and you do understand different cultures, it makes it easier to understand the like ups and downs and the ebb and flow.
Yes.
And, you know, I'm teaching my business partner that right now because at the beginning of like we work with people in the United States as well. And, you know, it's just completely different. And
Yeah.
so, I think I have a lot of like experience and like cultural experience as well.
Yeah.
And, I'm like, yeah, maybe we can't relate because you have to drive 3 hours to get 15 miles. And I can live in the United States and drive a Mercedes G Wagon and live in luxury.
Yeah.
That we don't necessarily relate on that, but what we can relate on is common goals.
Yeah.
And, let's move the needle forward. And when we do move the needle forward, we all are going to get rewarded.
Yeah.
And so if you can connect with people on a team level, then you speak all the same language.
So the movie is Dazed and Confused.
Dazed and confused. Yes.
Man, I just could not stop. So I'm curious in your life of everything that you've lived up to this point. I'm going to take you to a dream tonight. You're 18 years old. You can give that young version of you a piece of advice based on this life you've lived, the wisdom that you've gained and accumulated over all this time. What advice would you impart? And would that version of you listen?
Ooh, the second part's good.
That's the caveat.
That's the caveat. Um, hmm. My advice would be to have set boundaries a lot earlier in my life.
Yeah.
Boundaries with people, boundaries with myself, boundaries with like work.
Yeah.
Um, I went through a really, 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 really bad and the best year of my life and the worst year of my life at the same time. I was like the highest in my career, like blowing up every stage, blowing up awards, but I was going through a nasty divorce.
Yeah.
And I was married to somebody 10 years too long. And, I look back on that and I'm like, I would have never put up with the stuff I put up with
Yeah.
now, but I didn't have the boundaries and I struggled. It wasn't that I struggled with confidence. I had the confidence as myself and as a woman. And like I worked in a very much, even though it's a beauty industry, it was a very much men dominant industry at the top. So I didn't lack that kind of confidence, but I lacked the boundaries of like letting people down. And I I stayed too long because of that. And it was not just letting him down, it was letting myself down. Like I thought it was like a symbol of failure.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, it was actually a symbol of achievement because the minute I released those chains and the minute you start going through that process of like healing, you don't even realize that you need to, but that's when the magic happens. So would I have listened to it? That's a hard one. I'm stubborn.
Yeah.
I have to make my own mistakes. That is one of the things that I do work on. I have a hard time not listening to people's ideas, but I'm just a really stubborn person. I can
Yeah.
be really bullheaded,
Yeah.
so
Yeah. So of all of these things that you've done in your life and accomplished and become, what are you the proudest of?
ooh, the proudest I think I'm the proudest now of where I'm at with, I've the last 2 years, I've mentored and coached, 2 teams that have both gotten into the finals of the North American Hairdressing Awards.
Yeah.
I've won it as a hairstylist, so I've at one point it's the biggest award that it's the Grammys and the Oscars of hair
Yeah.
and in the beauty industry. And so at in 2018, I won Hairstylist of the Year. And then I just kind of was like, okay, I won the big one. It's like winning the Super Bowl, right? So then it was like, do I need to continue to like win? I mean, for me, winning is bringing up the next generation. And in the last 2 years, 2 of my teams have placed as finalists and one of them won. So that was definitely my proudest moment.
Yeah. So everyone out there has a perception of you, family, friends, clients, colleagues, everyone around you, your business partner, but you run the show. What's your
Mhm.
perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I think that I'm a really loyal person that has a lot of respect for everyone. I try to really like take in everything and like understand where people are coming from. And that's part of like leadership.
Yeah.
And I'm a leader. I'm definitely somebody that like drives the bus.
Yeah.
Um, like I said, I am stubborn and but I think that's my determination. And I'm also a manifester. Like I literally am like I just say, I just live my life to the way I want my life to develop.
Yeah.
And some people think I'm a little woo woo on that, but I really do. And it's like it works.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't it's a mindset thing and
Yep.
it's the law of attraction and it starts playing out in every angle and aspect of your life and
Yeah.
when it does I think if you're naturally a manifester you don't even realize that you're doing it
True.
and then when you can finally put your thumb on it you're like wow that's why things like
Yeah.
work that's just the universe.
Yeah. Absolutely. I totally agree. So if anyone wants to hire you, reach out, delve into your world further, how do they do that?
Yeah, so we have 3 websites. We're building a 4th. My first one is my coaching and consulting business. And it is hair, beauty, heavy, but like I said, we've worked with plastic surgeons, we've worked with dental cosmetics, we've worked with a lot of different people, and that's
Okay.
hairbizandbeyond.com. And then my own website, which is my name, which is DanielleKeasling.com. It's under construction, but it will hopefully be live by next week. We're like just right there.
Okay.
We took it down and we've been vamping it because that's just evolved. Like that was basically also just a digital portfolio of my work where now I'm doing a lot of leadership speaking. I'm doing a lot of different things outside of my industry. So I'm like, I need to not just, this isn't just a digital business card anymore.
Yeah.
And then I've got a consumer site that we're working on developing too. It is live. I'm just like, it's a little cringe for me because I'm a perfectionist.
Sure.
We're working through it and it's called Another Million Miles. And that whole website developed in the aspect of there are so many people out there doing the on TikTok and Instagram and YouTube giving advice to consumers and they have no credibility. And so when I work with the brands, because I have some executive jobs and I work with some big brands, and then I have to like make decisions and pay influencers and figure out where our dollars are going to go. And I look at what I pay some of these influencers, no, nothing against because I am one myself. But I'm like, wait a second. Like I should be doing this
Yeah.
on a bigger scale because I actually have the credibility. I should be educating consumers on this stuff. So that's our next chapter.
Cool. This has been
Yeah.
wonderful. Thank you so much for taking a little time out. Thank you for your story. Best of luck with everything.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure talking with you today.
Absolutely. Thank you. Take care.
All right. Thanks.